So we can find proteins in things like tuna. We can also find them in things like regular pinto beans and also things like black-eyed peas.
Foods rich in protein are eggs, meat, beans, poultry such as chicken and turkey, soy, and fish.
Of course, we also have meat and eggs as a great source of protein as well.
So what elements can I expect to find in proteins?
Well, do you remember how we had carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in both carbohydrates and lipids?
Right, yeah.
Well, now we're only adding nitrogen. So proteins have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen as their basic elements that they have in there.
Okay. Okay. What are proteins really made up of anyway?
Well, I'm glad you asked. They are actually made up of something called amino acids.
Amino acids have this basic structure. The R group changes in each amino acid. There are 20 amino acids that make up proteins.
Amino acids. And in reality, amino acids have to be linked together by something called a peptide bond. Those guys are really important because when they get linked together, these amino acids get linked together, that gives way to something called a polypeptide.
Oh wait, I remember poly from before, right? So poly means many, so this is when you get a whole bunch of amino acids together?
Linked up by those peptide bonds, so proteins and polypeptides interchangeably used.
Okay.
Amino acids are joined to make a polypeptide or protein.
Okay. All right, so I know protein's important for us to stay strong and be healthy, but what do we need proteins for? What do they help us do?
Oh, good, good. I'm glad you asked. So we have two types of proteins. Our first type of protein is going to be structural. And so these types of proteins serve as our building blocks for cells. So you see these right in here? These are going to be the structural proteins that we're talking about. So big muscles will be a part of that. And the second type are going to be globular proteins. Now I think of globular, I usually think of like a big glob. And so those guys include enzymes. And do you already know what enzymes do for us?
I have a little bit of an idea, but what is it that enzymes do?
Good. Enzymes make reactions happen faster. And so proteins enzymes are a very good example of proteins and reactions happening faster. They can also be found in our cell membrane as well. They really help different items to pass in and out of our cell membrane as well. So proteins are very useful in our cell membranes.
Oh, I remember that from before, I think, when I studied cells way back in the day. They're kind of like doors or bridges, right?
Exactly. Help things flow smoothly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fibrous or structural proteins form long strands. They give shape and support to cells. They are found in tendons, ligaments, hair, nails, hoofs, and silk and spiderwebs. Globular proteins are folded chains of amino acids. They are seen in enzymes, antibodies, and hormones. This diagram shows you two kinds of protein. In particular, we want to look at structural protein for shape and strength. Notice the long strands. The globular protein is folded on itself, and we want to focus on enzymes. Proteins in membranes allow materials to pass into or out of cells.